courage to be just another silent man. Just another silent man. There are so many curves on this mountain road, so many of them are blind, but my car eats them all, for there is nothing wrong. I guess today's the day she no longer needs me. I've been one to call Brian, look mate, it's not like I don't care, but what can I as one man do? Surely you understand, things are not like they were before. To try and keep your job now, somehow you have to learn to be just another silent man. This land is changing, this is a fast changing land. Yeah, I get it, okay. I read the memo, I understand. You wanna say something now, in fact you just wanna scream, but you know that you can't, for if you wanna survive, then mate, you're gonna have to find the courage to be just another silent man. Little white crosses passing by, wilted flowers drying around their base. Life's been reached again, I guess, by another silent man. Life's been reached again, I guess, by another silent man.
Wait for that last bit of harmonica to go. Good evening, everybody. We've got Lindsay coming on again tonight. He's going to talk about Betrayal. I want to thank everybody for the support from the bees. I even saw that the batshit crazy cookers have said it's the perfect bee for the our movement. So thank you, guys. It's nice to see you finally saying something positive. And so this is what we're going with at the moment as it progresses. This is thanks to so it's Melanie. Oh my God, my brain. Melanie, who came up with the idea of the concept of the blue bee, and then Chris Holmes came up with Bee Free. So this is what we're going through with Cafe Locked Out for now. So that'll be on all the stuff coming forward. But let's get on to get our esteemed colleague on here and have a great conversation like we did last time. I'm so looking forward to this. If you have any questions for a psychologist, send them through. We can answer them. We'll have a crack, or he will. I'll just sit here. How you going, Lindsay? Good to see you.
I'm doing
brother.
pretty well, Michael. Yeah, good to see you too, mate. And as always, we just need to start off with a disclaimer that this is not individual psychological advice, that I am a psychologist, but I'm not anybody here's psychologist. So, you know, it's a feeble attempt to save my license. So
Yes.
yeah, big subject,
I
mate.
don't
And man,
understand why we can't have these conversations. I mean, what the hell? Why is it such a crime? You're just
well,
talking. You just got a lifetime of knowledge that you've learned, as well as your training, but you've acquired this knowledge. And as an elder in society now, and you're not that old, but as an elder in society now, you're sharing the wisdom. Surely this is how we work.
it is, but we also live under an increasingly casually totalitarian environment where the sort of aims that what I believe our movement has got, which is to enhance people's capacity for critical thought, to help people move in a direction which is in line with their values, to help people have more genuine love and compassion, to be free. All of those things are sacrilegious to authoritarian regimes, and we pretty much everywhere in the Western world these days, America might be an exception at the moment, but pretty much everywhere in the Western world, we now live under what Brett Weinstein refers to as turnkey totalitarianism, where they've built all of the jails and they've got all of the rules in place, and they're selectively and experimentally exploiting those rules that are put in place to keep free thinkers like us in check. And somebody whose livelihood depends on a brutally powerful entity like the Australian Health Practitioners Registration Authority giving me permission to practice, if they perceive me as a threat to the mainstream narrative, as they did during COVID, and let's face it, my sin then was merely to ask people to think. These guys, but we've got to have these conversations.
How dare you?
It really hurts people to think. It's a dangerous, disturbing thing for people to do. It's much easier not to think than it is to actually exercise your grey matter. So,
I love it.
And
I was with Richard Wollstonecraft last night. Richard Wollstonecraft is a contrarian, he calls himself, but he's a great thinker. His house is full of philosophical books, and he's just this great thinker. He's just a joy to be around, even though he pisses most people off. I love the fella. And it's simply because I like his brain. His brain is constantly challenging you. Anyway, we want to talk about betrayal. You had a great idea to start from a personal point. So, explain what you mean.
Okay, well, I'm a pretty simple guy. I'm relatively intelligent, relatively well informed. But I genuinely believe that if you can begin with simple concepts, you can then start to peel the onion back and get more and more complicated. So with this huge topic of betrayal, rather than diving in at the deep end, and let's put it out there right now that there have been massive betrayals over the last 5 years at many, many levels. And I genuinely hope we get the opportunity to at least name, if not explore, the majority of those appalling betrayals that we've experienced over the last 5 years. But I thought to try and make it initially digestible, we might try and frame the early part of our conversation, Michael, around the phenomenon of interpersonal betrayal. So, two people who have got some form of social contract tying them together, and a betrayal occurs, and how that betrayal might eventuate, how it might be discovered, how it might be dealt with, what the consequences might be. So if we can explore that and see and develop some of the nuances from both sides of the betrayer and the betrayed, and the potential duties, fallouts and harms to both sides, then we can leverage it out into a broader argument. But now I'm really crap at having a conversation like this and reading the comments. So do you mind if I leave reading the comments to you, who are much more?
Yeah. Mike, if he comes through, I'll let you know. No, you just
cool.
do you. Yeah.
Yep. Awesome. Okay. So now
I can't even see him at the moment.
Oh, they must have all gone home. Okay. So just putting my own personal values out there, I really struggle with infidelity in interpersonal relationships. That my first experience of betrayal was discovering my mother in flagrant delicti with someone who wasn't my father, and And my father was one of the most wonderful, brilliant, generous, kind Christian atheists that you could ever have hoped to meet. And for him to have been betrayed in such a terrible way left a significant scar on me as the little boy that discovered that. And so that became I think it was an almost instantaneously hardwired aversion to any form of infidelity within a interpersonal relationship. Yeah. So that's the baggage that I bring to bear on this. And so there have been a few times in my life where I've been offered the opportunity to be unfaithful to the person that I've been in a relationship at the time. And my reaction is always curiosity and humor. And so this is I've had an enormous amount of secondhand experience in my clinical practice. I've lost count of the number of people who've come where the individual who comes is dealing with the betrayal of their partner betraying them, or a couple has come where one has betrayed the other, and for a whole bunch of reasons, they're trying to salvage their relationship. So if we begin with that kind of micro view of what betrayal might be, and then go bigger with that. What are your thoughts?
Sure. Well, it's a very interesting subject, because it's it's very interesting. You begin. I'll share my thoughts at the beginning, but you lead the way, Master.
Okay. My understanding of this is that when you are in any form of an interpersonal relationship with another person, you are entering a social contract, and you are both projecting into that contract what your assumptions and beliefs are of that contract. And the marriage contract, as it used to be stated, is pretty explicit. It says love, honor, and obey, and it tries to make all those. But there's two types of projection that come into this potential area for betrayal. One is the positive and optimistic projection. So I've disclosed my baggage in terms of infidelity. So that means when I come into a relationship, I project onto the other person my revulsion of betrayal. And so when I lean into an interpersonal relationship, I do it on the assumption that I will not be betrayed. Now, I've learnt, and thankfully I've only had to get into one significant interpersonal relationship in the last 36 years, and that's still going. And interestingly, in the very first year of that relationship, we very actively explored the areas where we could find each as individuals, find ourselves being betrayed. And it was an attempt to insulate each other against betraying the other. That, if my wife was offended by someone picking their nose and I didn't realize that I picked my nose, then that would be a mini betrayal. If I got into a relationship with somebody who held that aversion to someone getting up to the second joint in their nose, that we would have to deal with that, but do it proactively rather than after. And everyone knows there's a honeymoon period where your behaviours are the behaviours of a lovelorn suitor, and then there is a post honeymoon period where you relax into your normal personality, and that's when all these mini betrayals come out. I didn't know you picked your nose. I wouldn't have got into a relationship with you if I'd known you'd done that. So that's so from an interpersonal perspective, the autistic part of me very enthusiastically wants to proactively deal with the potential for betrayal in an attempt to diffuse it so that it never becomes an issue in that particular relationship. And so that means if I discovered that my beloved wife was sleeping with the next door neighbour's husband, that would be a very, very profound betrayal to me. And there'd be a whole bunch of things that, as a peculiar human being who happens to be a psychologist, the first thing I would want to try and understand is how and why that betrayal occurred. Because it takes two to tango, or not.
Yes.
And so if it was my behaviours that drove my wife into the arms of another man, then I would want to know so I could take my own responsibility for it. I wouldn't want to throw her under the bus if it was something peculiar, unexpected, and distasteful that I had done that had led to that awful outcome. But in the absence of me being some awful person that had stimulated her to betray me, then we've got a whole nother set of problems. Now I'm coming at it from a relatively virtuous perspective, and the onus is then on her to potentially do two things. One is to provide some sort of explanation as to why it happened, and after 36 years, it would be a brutal shock to find that my wife was just a promiscuous hussy who was looking for some dude to have a bit of fun with. So that first part of betrayal is trying to comprehend why you might have been betrayed. And now, and as I've said, it's a peculiarity of mine that I look to my own guilt first, and I would then, in the absence of that guilt, or even in the presence of it, as I say, it usually takes two sinners to sin like that. I would be actively exploring why my wife did it. So that'd be number one, and some sort of rationale as to why the betrayal had occurred.
Yeah.
And the second thing would be to decide whether it was a deal breaker, whether the betrayal was going to be an instantaneous end to the relationship, or whether we were going to try and reconcile whatever had gone wrong so that we could perpetuate the relationship. So as a beginning framework of trying to get our heads around the psychological and social and meaningful elements of betrayal, how does that sound as a ball rolling sort of a start, Michael?
Well, it's interesting, the explanation where you say you're going to decide whether it's a deal breaker, that'll all depend on the explanation. But the person's already lied to you, and generally people in their explanation will play the victim, and it's very rare that they'll come clean, or they might not even know why they're doing it. I think when it comes to affairs, personally, I think a lot of people have the affairs because they're desperate to feel alive. And it's like you might be caviar in the bed, but after 36 years, caviar can get boring. And I think when people have affairs, they're not really having an affair with the other person. They're having an affair with themselves, and the other person's like a mirror. That's it, making them feel attractive again, making them feel like they could still be in the game, things like this. I think sometimes, it's interesting. Rahana and I, we were never unfaithful, but we got to a point where our relationship was crumbling. And this was pre-COVID, a few years pre-COVID. We were really struggling, and we decided to try polyamory, and that was really interesting adventure for about a year. And they were the rules that, okay, we're allowed to see other people, but we're the main relationship and stuff like that. Very, very, very interesting. Very interesting. We were blogging about it. The blog went nuts. And I wrote a film script about it called Goodbye Lover. It's a comedy, but it was really a really interesting experience. To just see there were some things that enhanced our relationship immensely, and there were other things that were really detrimental to it, because the lesson I think learned was our human hearts aren't built for polyamory.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't work. People they might get over the fact that you sort of have sex with someone. If it's like meaningless, they can survive that. But if you have feelings for someone, which of course you will because you're being intimate, then that's where the heart has issues with it. And I think that was the lesson I learned from that it didn't work in our case. It was an interesting experience. We still separated, but it was an interesting experience to do. Yeah. It was sort of like being in the in uncharted territory. And we were together for about 23 years, I think. So it was quite a while before we tried it. But so yeah, my views on betrayal, I especially like, say, even with your mother, it's almost like an addiction to an excitement of life. And it's hard to get excited by the same lover every night where, you know, someone over the fence, no one's watching, it's naughty. There's an excitement to it. You know, this is,
Okay.
we
That,
are,
but that,
we are imperfect beings, you know.
okay.
That's the thing. I've
And
actually never been unfaithful. That polyamory was it, but I had rules. But
yeah,
in my life, I've actually never been unfaithful.
yeah. Okay, so that, as always, Michael, you've got a tremendous way with words, and you're an excellent playwright and poet. And so, to respond to what you've just said, there's a number of really deep and meaningful elements in what you've said.
Yeah.
But let's try and keep it to betrayal. And I'm trying not to get distracted by the issue of monogamy and all those sort of things. So I'm just trying to cleanse my
can
mind.
Be various things, you know, in a relationship. Betrayal by a friend can be a huge betrayal. You know,
Okay, well, let's work
finding your
towards
staff members stealing money from the till. You know, and you've got a beloved staff member if you're in a cafe or something.
The broad definition of betrayal is where you have an expectation of somebody else's behaviour, and they act in a manner contrary to that. So that's the kind of broadest definition of betrayal. And as I've described in Sarah and my relationship, we very early in that relationship tried to identify what we might perceive as betrayal, and determine whether we could commit to a relationship which would be absent those actions of betrayal. So we tried to get out as much as we could. We tried to get
boundaries.
out. Yeah, and now my entire philosophy as a psychologist is that if you let your heart rule your life, then you're running an incredible risk. It can be really fulfilling, but it's almost certainly going to lead you to some form of hedonistic pursuits where you are willing to do something that is a dopamine hit without real consideration of the potential consequences of that behavior. Now we've got the Western world is filled with people who are morbidly obese. Now, these people are acting in a way which their society has recommended that they do. Now, every ad for fast food is espousing obesity as a lifestyle, and so that's a betrayal. We don't actually explicitly believe that our contract with our society is that it will take advantage of us even if it kills us. And when we explore that, when we widen this later on, we will come to the same realization as we went into COVID, that none of us would have believed that our medical infrastructure would have been not only recommending but forcing something onto us. But we'll get to that later on, hopefully. So in terms of whatever the betrayal is, if it is an employee stealing from the till, if it's my best friend lying to me, or if it's my wife sleeping with the next door neighbour, you don't even have to agree that it's a betrayal. That my employee could argue that if only I'd put a camera over the till, they wouldn't have had the opportunity to steal from them. So if they've got that narcissistic viewpoint that nothing can ever be their fault, they can then say, no, you betrayed me by putting temptation in my path. And if you're stupid enough to leave give me access to the till, then you've got to expect me to take a handful out whenever I get the opportunity. So there's the self-serving response of the betrayer, and the manner in which the betrayed person then deals with it. Now, I made it fairly explicit when I was employing staff that if anyone stole from me in any way, that was a deal breaker. And so if my staff did steal from me, then they had to be pretty darn clever about doing it, because they knew that if they were discovered, it was the end of what was actually a fantastic job. I was a pretty good employer. And and so they saw the benefit in maintaining the relationship as being greater than the short-term benefit of stealing $20 out of the till. So so in the presence of one of these perceived betrayals, both parties both parties have the opportunity to determine where the betrayal actually lies. And that's the beginning of exploring a betrayal. And this will become relevant when we do get to the widest point of betrayal in terms of the last 5 years. Because the couples that have come to me where betrayal has been a function, there's a couple of rationales for couples like that presenting for therapy. One is that they value the provision of an intact marriage to their children more important than they do to their own dopamine fulfillment. And so that's a couple where the person who's had the affair doesn't necessarily regret having had the affair. They regret having been caught and now having to pay the price for it. And the person who has discovered the affair, the pseudo-innocent party, is now struggling with, gee, well, we've both got this higher order value of maintaining an intact relationship for the kids. And in working with such clients, my generic approach is, if you can't find a way to re-engage in this relationship in a manner that will preclude any further betrayal, if you can't do that work, then you're actually presenting a sham relationship to your children. And it's a line ball as to whether that's going to do them the same amount of harm as a separated relationship might do.
Yeah, very good point.
So so that's the acknowledgement and recognition of what the betrayal actually means and what the motivations of both parties are to try and heal that relationship. So
it's interesting, isn't it? Because usually if someone is asleep around, if they're in a relationship, it's often had numerous affairs. That I've met people who admit they've had numerous affairs with their partner, and they're addicted to the dopamine hit of the affairs or something, whatever it is, but they've had numerous. And they, I think in France and Spain, I think it's almost culture that the men have a mistress in the thing, and so that's why. Well, that's what they used to portray, but I don't know. It's. I think the really interesting thing with affairs is you can say about the children, you can say about this, but it really comes down to the other person in the relationship and how close your bond is, because you might find a way to talk your way through it to stay in the relationship. But once the betrayal happens, a certain really deep bridge, a soul-to-soul bridge, is burnt. And I don't know of any relationship where that's been rebuilt after a betrayal. They might be together, but that real deep bond, that's broken.
It's my professional experience that it's fairly rare for those relationships to survive in a healthy manner. But there are enough exceptions to break the rule that if both parties, if the rationale is external, if the parties are trying to stay together as an act of loyalty to their children, for example, or because they're fearful that their family will find out, or if there's some external environmental rationale for them staying together, that makes it a really tough gig to try and make that thing work again. But the philandering partner is a real problem under those circumstances, because now you've got somebody who is driven by dopamine and who is doing it in an amoral way. They don't even see their behavior as immoral. And and that's where I think, and that's where the soul bridge gets burnt, because I'm sure there are people who are willing to have a relationship with an amoral person one kind or the other, but I'm certainly not one of those kind of people. If I discovered that a business partner lacked any moral sense, there's a difference between being immoral and amoral. If you are immoral, you are doing the wrong thing, knowing you're doing it, and you're kind of trying to salve your conscience and hide your sins. But if you are amoral, you have no sense of moral compass whatsoever, and you get away with whatever you can get away with. And so I suspect that if I found out I had a business partner who was amoral, let alone a life partner who was amoral, I would be looking to exit that relationship as rapidly and as cleanly and as permanently as I could. So serial infidelity, I haven't given it that much thought, but I suspect that there's a whole bunch of interesting psychological problems under the surface. I've never been polygamous, but polyamorous, sorry. But I did have a couple of years after my first marriage failed, where I went through 2 years of unbridled promiscuity, and it was a complete shock to me because I assumed from my marital experience that women didn't find me attractive, and so for 2 years it was an extraordinary phenomenon to live through, and then 2 years into that, I suddenly realised that my promiscuity was not a function of me being some Don Juan. It was a function of there being an army of lonely, insecure, low self-esteem women who were looking for some affirmation that they were attractive, and that realization was crushing to me. That I realized that I had been unwittingly taking advantage of these vulnerable women, and that was one of those pivotal moments in my life where I effectively stopped that behaviour. And then I wasn't celibate, but I certainly wasn't as promiscuous as I had been. And I don't think I'd been with anybody for about 3 years before I actually met this fabulous woman that I've now spent the last 30 years with.
A drought.
Yeah, it wasn't a drought. It was like a fast, mate. It was. I was
you
pretty comfortable.
Just 3 years.
Mrs. Palmer and her 5 daughters.
That's hard, man. I've done 9 months. I think was the most. There's 3 years. That's almost a sabbatical.
Michael, have you explored tantric sex at any stage?
Do you know what? I've got a joke about tantric sex. This is my joke. Now, usually it's women that want it. They say, let's have tantric sex. It's usually women posting it. And because they hear Sting goes, I can have sex for like 8 hours. And the women go, okay, let's do that. I go, yeah, okay, book me in for an 8-hour session. And then they look at their calendar. They got to pick up the kids. They got to do tap dancing. They got to do the shopping. They got to do this. And then when they finally get to it, they go, so can you fit me in? Where can you fit me in? I can fit you in Friday evening for about 3 minutes.
Yeah. Well,
which is
my limited understanding of the tantric nature of it is that you delay ejaculation, that you don't complete the act for an extended period. So it doesn't mean you're actually ramming somebody for 8 hours. It means you're spreading the enjoyment out over that sort of a period. And I guess that brings me back to where I come from psychologically. In almost every aspect of life, not just interpersonal relationships and sexual relationships, I think there is a degree of discipline that's required to have a rich, full, and meaningful life. That you don't achieve a rich, full, and meaningful life by becoming hedonistic and satisfying all your immediate desires. You have a rich, full, and meaningful life by recognizing that life is hard, life sucks. Sometimes you do only get 3 minutes to fit that sort of an activity in, and so that means you have to intentionally find a balance in life. And the serial philanderers, the people who have had affair after affair after affair after affair, they're demonstrating a willingness to sacrifice their long-term happiness for their short-term gratification. And that's in many ways that's a psychological illness. It's acceptable for a child to do that, but you would expect once somebody matures to be a meaningfully intelligent adult that they would start to get things like emotional regulation. Eh?
Yeah. Brad was just someone was commenting saying I'm avoiding the question. I was just telling me to be shush.
Because I'm not reading the comments at all.
I've had periods like that too, where it's lots of brief relationships, not so much one night stands, very brief relationships, but you end up feeling very empty. It sort of leaves you feeling lonelier. And I remember I had a great mate once who he went to a brothel. He told me he'd always been very lucky with the women, but as he got older, it didn't happen. He went to a brothel, and he told me it was the loneliest thing that he'd ever experienced.
Yeah.
And he was craving intimacy. And I've got a lot of men who crave intimacy, and I like that too. The cuddling, the kissing. And actually being with someone. I've got this play called about a woman who lives on an island, which is in the deepest part of her uncharted part of her soul. So no one's ever reached her. And there's all these shipwrecks around. All the men have tried to reach the island. And then one guy washes up on the island, and he's not what she expects. So it goes from there. But that's how I see people, this lonely, that there's a part of them of this island that no one's ever walked on. And so when you meet someone that gets into you, under your skin, it's very hard to let that person go. You know what I mean? You really have this gorgeous connection where you feel like at certain times, in certain, either in sex or just in intimate moments, you were in an infinite universe, but you really feel that infinite universe is circulating around you. You really feel like that's it. This is where you want to be. The moments that are almost moments that you go, I could die right here now, and or leave me here in this moment. They don't happen all the time. It's not this, but I get it. This is why I don't have affairs, because I actually like getting close to people.
Yes,
it's really special, especially as we're getting older. Loneliness is a curse, and good friends, a good partner are invaluable.
Yep. Okay, so let's bring it back to betrayal. So, still talking at that micro level of a relationship. If the betrayal has occurred, then there are relatively spontaneous reactions to it. I think one of the most profound betrayals that I can think of in a close relationship is incestuous child abuse.
Oh, my God, yes,
now,
absolutely.
Now, I've had all sorts of people in the 30 years that I've been a psychologist as my clients. I've had so many people who've experienced that terrible betrayal, and the other parties to the family, it's not uncommon for them to go into denial that the abuse has happened, and actually blame the child for even talking about it. That couldn't possibly have happened. You're a terrible person for even imagining that could have happened.
Yeah.
And
I know. I've had loads of friends like that. That's very true.
Mm-hmm. So that's now betrayal upon betrayal. That's where that fundamental trust within the relationship. And I mean, let's face it, a child is a relatively innocent blank canvas to some degree, and the parent's unequivocal job is to be trustworthy towards that child. And when that's betrayed, and it's then compounded by the other parent not protecting or defending the injured child, these are and the consequences to that, just the initial betrayal of the abuse, that has lifelong traumatic implications for the betrayed person. So betrayal is a big deal. If it's not meaningfully
do they
dealt with.
do that? In your opinion, why does the other parent refuse to believe? It's usually the woman. And
Yep.
why is that? Because it's very common. I know so many cases, or even where the mother knows and just looks the other way. What is that? Is it just she
Okay.
wants safety?
Okay. At the risk of opening this conversation too rapidly, let me put the question back to you. Why did all those tens of thousands of doctors agree that it was safe and effective?
Protecting their pile of dirt.
And I mean, I was married to a woman at one stage, and she was in it for the security. When we went to marriage guidance counselling, as it began to all fall apart, the marriage guidance counsellor managed to accurately identify all the areas in which I was miserable in the relationship, to which my then wife agreed. She said, yes, I know Lindsay's miserable. And the counsellor said, well, what about you? And she said, I'm perfectly happy. I've got everything I've ever wanted in life. I've got a decent man who's my husband. He makes great money. He's reliable. He doesn't beat me. He's a wonderful father. We've got 2 healthy children. We live in a beautiful suburb in a lovely home, and I don't have to work. I'm as happy as I could ever be.
Wow.
And the counsellor, we both kind of looked at each other, and the counsellor said, but your husband's miserable. And her response was, yeah, that's his problem, not mine. Now that ended that marriage, by the way. That to me was a betrayal worse than infidelity. That someone having zero interest in my well-being. That was such an extraordinary revelation, to realise that this person was willing to throw me under the bus in order to meet their own personal needs. It was an extraordinary
experience. Did she understand that? When she said that, did she understand she ended the relationship with that?
No, it wasn't until the drive home, where I thanked her for her honesty, and I said, you've clarified what it is that I need to do now. And she said, what's that? I said, I'm moving out on Saturday. And
wow.
And she said, you can't do that. I said, why not? She said, because that'll make me miserable.
Sorry, I shouldn't laugh, but my God.
Well, it's a bygone era. That's 40 years ago that conversation happened. So,
yeah,
more innocent times. And I look back on that, and there are so many better ways that I could have handled everything leading up to that moment. I definitely do not. I absolutely, totally, and unequivocally do not hold her totally blameworthy for the demise of our relationship. I contributed to that. And this is another point that I think is important to talk about in terms of betrayal, that without any intent on my part, I betrayed our relationship. My immaturity, my naivety, my stupidity all contributed to our relationship getting into a deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper hole.
Yeah.
And
so you never addressed the issues early on or anything like that.
Absolutely. So, and thank you, Michael. That's a really lovely potential insight. You and I have already agreed that we're going to try and, if we possibly can, we're going to try and make these conversations a way to help people move forward with love and compassion. And so from that perspective, I think that what we're now talking about is if you want and need to maintain a meaningful relationship, you need to invest the truth into it. You need to be courageous enough and compassionate and loving and honest enough to be able to share your misgivings and questions with the other party. And basically demand that they do it back. And because if I'd have had the social skills or the relationship skills or the modeling, this is not a get out of jail card for me, but I was raised in a completely loveless family. My parents stayed together for the kids and did significant emotional and psychological and social harm to me and my sister, because we had a role model of parenting which was really a crappy role model. In the 1960s, a guy named B.J. Thomas brought out a song called Mama, And it was, who's the one who tied your shoes when you were young and you just went to come and see what you had done, mama. But lovely song. And we only had the radio to listen to that in those days. And so when I got to school that day, I said to all my mates in the schoolyard, oh, did you hear that BJ Thomas song on the radio before you left for school? Oh, yeah, yeah. And I said, wasn't it hilarious? And they said, what do you mean? I said, well, mothers aren't like that. And all of my schoolmates looked at me like I was the weirdo. And they said,
yeah.
That's exactly what my mum's like. And I've gone, seriously? Women like that exist? And so that carried over into my first marriage.
So she wasn't nurturing your mother then? Wasn't a nurturing woman? Wasn't a motherly woman?
There I am with humour again. Sorry, what was the meaning of that word again, Michael?
To tell you something else, I have something funny. My parents, they've been together over 61 years now. They were incredibly loving. I used to tell my brother and sister, they're like the sun, the center, and we're just offsprings from their love, and we spin around them. But their great love is for each other, and they always stay together. I don't have any infidelity, anything like that, and they're still together now. And so to me, when I was in school, I thought something was wrong with them because all of my mates were from separated families. I was thinking, what's wrong with my family? What's wrong with these two people who love each other? They must be sick.
Yeah.
and I thought as we went on with our lives that, oh, it's going to be easy for me to have. Well, I've had a great training on how to have a long-term relationship, and instead, my life has just been a series of crap relationships. Not crap, but a series of relationships falling apart. But Kelly is probably the healthiest relationship I've had in a long, long, long time.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say
and that's because I'm more mature now as well.
With Kelly, for sure. Sorry?
Yeah, but it's more mature. I'm more mature now. I'm talking a lot, trying to understand things, trying to just benefit, because there's no kids holding us, there's no money. The only thing that holds us together is each other. So yeah. And
I invest a lot in the old story of the gift of the Magi. Where the young couple, it's their first anniversary and they're broke. They can't afford a gift, and they're two treasures. The guy has got his grandfather's gold watch, and the girl has got this magnificent waist-length hair. And so they meet up at the end of the day on their anniversary, and they both look at each other and laugh because she's cut all of her hair off to sell to a wig maker to be able to buy a chain for his grandfather's watch so he doesn't lose it. And he's sold the grandfather's watch to buy a set of beautiful ivory back brushes for her to brush her beautiful long hair with.
Right.
Now, what that is a metaphor for is, and I think it's one of the reasons why Sarah and I have got a really wonderful relationship, is because my main interest in life is trying to do my best to make sure that Sarah's needs are met. And Sarah's main interest in life is trying to do her best to make sure that my interests are met. So that means we're both leaning into the relationship and we're supporting one another. And we are completely dependent on each other, but we're also independent of one another. We can go to a party and not even talk to each other during the night. We're off talking to other people, and there's no jealousy, no, because I know she's interested in my well-being and she knows I'm interested in her well-being. And that doesn't mean we don't screw it up occasionally. It doesn't mean that we don't drop the ball. And but if you're coming from that position, then if there is a sense of betrayal, it's superficial, it's accidental, it's unintentional.
Yeah.
And so what we're trying to circle around. I'll tell you said that. But actually, it still exists.
I just want to show you one comment. Here's from Rebecca Powell. I like this show because after COVID, I don't know how to trust anymore. I have people interested in me, but I don't trust anymore. Thanks for the comment, Rebecca. We'll get to this.
That's a really timely thing. Thanks, Rebecca, and thanks, Michael, for bringing it up. once any sort of a betrayal has occurred, if it's a profound betrayal, then there's that burning of the soul bridge that you referenced earlier, Michael. But your garden variety betrayal is a breach of trust, and I'm a bit of a hard ass. Once somebody has breached my trust, if I go into the world offering trust to people, so I trust people until they demonstrate that they're untrustworthy. And the moment they do that, I don't trust them again. And there's been many occasions where people have said to me, "Oh, don't you trust me?" And my response is, "Of course I don't trust you. You've adequately demonstrated your untrustworthiness to me. I'd be an idiot to trust you again." And they're offended by that. They see it as a betrayal, and they say, "Oh, you're being a bit harsh." I said, I agree it's harsh, but its origins are in your deceit, not in me. It's not that I'm at fault for catching you in a lie. It's that you're at fault for uttering the lie. So the regaining of trust is an incredibly fragile, difficult, and long-term thing. That if somebody has lied to me, and we are both motivated to continue the relationship, the origin, cause, and effect of the lie is the first thing that has to be explored. That we both need to be settled in our mind as to what actually happened. Now, if it was a casual, no malice aforethought error of judgment, then that's not a betrayal. That's just someone being human and screwing up. But if it's an avoidance of responsibility or an attempt to take advantage of me, or any one of those more darker motivations for the lie, now we've got that real big problem where Lindsay, for one, it's going to be a lifetime's job, and I will tentatively begin to trust a person again. So in response to what Rebecca was saying, if your next relationship is going to be corrupted by the betrayal of your previous relationship, that means you're potentially getting into relationships too quickly. You're experiencing the superficial joy of the honeymoon period, and then diving in at the deep end. And my repeated advice to young people in relationships is don't go anywhere more romantic than a coffee shop for the first 6 weeks. Don't go to bed together for at least 6 months, and don't get married for at least 3 years.
6 months?
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
Now, this sorts the wheat from the chaff. That if I'm genuinely emotionally attached to somebody, and
it's a big ask. 6 months when you're young. When you're young, 6 months is a big ask.
Best time to learn a new habit of self-control.
Self something.
Emotional regulation is a skill that's no longer. It's the reason we've got.
I couldn't do that. I couldn't do 6 months. No, I love my sex. I couldn't do that.
Michael, I promise you, nobody's testicles have exploded because they've gone without sex for 6 months.
Well, I did do 9 months, but yeah, no, yeah. We don't talk about it now, but do you know the interesting thing? Just a little segue. I think the worst word in the English language is sex, because it's totally inappropriate for the actual intimacy of the moment of the effect. I can't believe they sat around a table and said, "Look, we need a new name for intercourse. We need a more usable name." And someone said, "How about sex?" And I can't believe they all went, "Oh, that's so romantic. That sums it up beautifully. So onomatopoeia, sex." And it's just, I just think it's a shitty word. I really do. I think fucking is better than sex, because at least there's got some action to the word. You know what I mean? Yeah. But sex is like sex,
because my preferred alternative is intimacy.
Intimacy, absolutely.
And I mean, people often come up to Sarah and I in the street because we don't even notice we're doing it. We just walk down the street holding hands, and we're an elderly couple, and yeah, we've had a number of younger couples come up to us and say,
one of you's a carer.
Thanks for that vision, Mike. This is going. Do we have to keep having these conversations, Michael?
I'm getting to that age, mate. Don't worry, I'm getting to that age. There's a, but that was. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
It's an act of intimacy. It's not just holding hands.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
it's a physical expression of genuine love, and it's just a normal thing. As I say, we are usually unaware that we're doing it, and so it's spontaneous. Now, I suspect that that one of the challenges with sexual intercourse is that it is so pleasurable. And whether it's God or Darwin who designed it that way, it's designed that way so that our species gets perpetuated, and the enjoyability of it has only become a commodity since the introduction of the contraceptive pill in the late 1960s. And,
that's right.
And so Brett Weinstein, I think it was, had a really interesting conversation with a radical feminist, and she argues that sex should be rewilded, that they should ban all contraception, so that instead of sex just being a casual physical act between two people, it carried with it the potential long-term consequences of a pregnancy.
Yeah. I just want to read this comment from, this is hilarious. Wayne Thew. G'day, Wayne. My wife told me no sex for a week as punishment. After 3 months, she was begging for sex. She's never used sex as a punishment after.
There you go.
Whatever works for you, Wayne. Whatever works.
Yeah. Good to see a man with a sense of humour. Okay, so getting on with this thing of betrayal. When we find ourselves betrayed, we've got a suite of options for us. One is we can go into the world of denial and pretend it never happened, and that will almost certainly perpetuate the behaviour. I suspect that's where the serial infidelities come from. That I had a very brief acquaintanceship with a guy who was married and had a girlfriend, and he was paying the rent for both of them, and they both knew about each other. And he was telling me this. We were driving somewhere, and he was telling me this, and he was skiting about it. He was saying, how great it was. And I said to him, "Are you telling me this in an attempt to impress me?" And he said, "Well, it's pretty impressive, mate." I said, "No, it's not. You found two pathetic human beings who are permitting you to take the most awful advantage of them. There's no way we are anthropologically designed for a woman to be serviced by two men. That's a function of the 20th and the 21st century. And for you to be openly proud of the fact that you've managed to subvert two women into doing this, and you're now publicly skiting about it, says a whole lot about you, and none of it's very good." So,
was he getting worth from it? Like, just, hey, I've got two good birds on the thing. Was he getting things?
That was his whole thing. That was his kudos. He was puffing himself up. So and the overwhelming majority of men, when he told them the story, "Oh, good on you, mate. Wow, that's incredible. Oh, how'd you manage that?" And then all of a sudden he bumped into this weirdo who said, "Seriously, you think that's a good thing?" Like, I don't get polygamy. I don't get the whole Mormon thing. What polygamy indicates to me is that it's a paternalistic religion.
A nightmare. More than one wife? You crazy?
No, if you're a Mormon, because the paternalistic nature of their religion makes the man the head of the household, and the women have to obey him. Now, that's
theory.
about it.
In theory, really?
Bring
me that man. I want to meet that man who thinks he's got 8 wives and he's in charge.
Yeah.
I saw this with Muslims. I saw this with a Muslim woman once was talking. She's wearing the hijab, and she was saying, the West believes that the men really control the women, and she's going, "Have you met Muslim women? And it's so much more complex than what it seems on the outside.
I
I met
appreciate
a
that.
woman in Townsville. I interviewed her. She was one of 64 children. Her father he'd been on 60 Minutes as a famous Australian polygamist. He had 13 wives. And so she was one of 64 kids. I don't know where she was in the list. She's astonishing. I told her, you've got to write a book about this. It's incredible. But I don't think he was in charge of them. I think the attraction to the relationship from the women's perspective wasn't even love for the guy. It was more, I don't know, some strange set of belonging or something. It'd be fascinating to find out how
It
they
would.
could,
But, I mean, if you're going to talk about paternalistic religions, you're not going to be able to
I mean,
avoid
that's
talking
incredibly
about
rare though,
Islam.
but
Yeah, and the other thing is, if for a woman to survive in one of those brutal paternalistic settings, if she has to exercise her feminine wiles to manipulate the man to get her own way, that seems about as profoundly unhealthy a relationship as I could ever imagine.
Oh, yeah. No, I couldn't think of
So,
anything, honestly. Because you
no,
couldn't even get really intimate with one of them. If you got numerous wives, I can't believe that the relationships wouldn't be just shallow, surface. Because how could you get intimate with someone and the next day you've got wife number 5 turning up? It just doesn't seem,
yeah.
I guess it's where you are as a person. If you're a narcissist or a sociopath, maybe you don't have those needs. But I
Well,
like
I don't think it doesn't necessarily have to fall into the category of a psychological or a psychiatric disorder. We are a very perverse species. We are peculiar among almost the rest of the animal kingdom in that we can train ourselves to smoke cigarettes. We can train ourselves to eat ourselves to death. We can train ourselves to have anal sex. There are so many perversities that, and I apologise for anyone who believes they genuinely enjoy anal sex. I'll tell you a brief story from a client's experience. I had I had a relationship where an experimental partner wanted to try it, so I've given it a go, and I'm not a fan. But in this particular client's life, her husband was constantly, he was obviously spent a lot of time viewing pornography. And I suspect that most of the men in pornography are homosexual. That's why they can go for, whatever it is, 30 minutes or however long a pornographic reel takes. But so he was constantly badgering her for anal sex. And I suggested a strategy where she could stop that happening, and which she employed very successfully, where she went home and said, look, I've been giving a lot of thought to, you wanting to have anal sex. And you've chosen one of the only parts of our anatomy that's identical. So if you reckon anal sex is going to be that good, let's buy a dildo that's exactly the same size as you, and we'll try it on you first. And if you ejaculate as a result of me ramming something up you, then you can do it to me. And he never mentioned it again. So getting back to betrayal. So in the micro area where an individual has been betrayed by another individual, they either go into denial and risk the perpetuation of it, they bring it out into the light and they explore it as a problematic element of the relationship, and they intelligently and intentionally work out a way that they're going to manage it moving forward. Very, very difficult gig. And it requires, was it Rebecca, the young lady that asked the question about trust earlier? I can't remember. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, her question.
I've got it here. It was, and this is Rebecca.
Yeah.
And
so Rebecca,
it's Rebecca, and it all comes down to we've been betrayed by so many families, not allowing you to come in for Christmas, workers sacking you even though you're a great employee. I was reading Kelly's letters today when she was trying to keep a job in the hospital, and every letter she writes is completely reasonable and balanced, but there's no go. There's just nothing. No, you have to take this. We don't care how good you are, how well you work for us. You have to jump through this hoop, or you have to leave. And
Okay,
and
let's get to that in a minute, Michael. That's the big
sure.
betrayal. Let's and I realise we're taking a long time to deal with the little one, and that's because it's such a powerful, emotional, and important subject for us to talk about. So, if I've been betrayed, I either deny it, or I meaningfully deal with it in cooperation with the betraying partner, or I leave. They're the three essential solutions, and they're all difficult. Once betrayal has entered any form of relationship, that's got the potential to be a fundamentally problematic relationship from the moment of the betrayal, not from the moment of the discovery of the betrayal, but from the moment of the betrayal. The betrayal itself demonstrates that there is something fundamentally amiss in that relationship that has been compensated for by the betrayal. So, and I've just realised how rapidly time is flying. So
that's right.
How about we bring it out to that bigger topic that you just introduced a minute ago, and
that's
talk
okay.
about
so where you're
the
saying
broad,
what the choices you have to do is you can see the correlation of what the choices people made. You can see the
Absolutely.
denial. You can see, and then you can see the people who left, which is us.
That's for
the freedom movement now, wherever we are.
Yeah, interesting. You've gleaned that, because I think the denial is the predominant coping mechanism that people have employed.
Yeah,
and it might be a pretty place in Egypt, but it's a terrible place to live in psychologically.
Yeah. I mean, it
denial,
must just eat you up. We just the batshit crazy page I went to today. The amount of hate they have on there isn't justified by what we're doing. What are we doing? We're selling love, we're selling hope. You hate. No, obviously the source of their hate comes from some greater betrayal or something.
Okay, can I have a go at couching the betrayal from their side, Michael? And I don't know how well I'll do at this. Let me try and steelman their perspective. Okay, so they're at a point where they are in denial that the people who ran the whole COVID nonsense betrayed us. They're avoiding looking at the reality of what happened over the last 5 years. So, and I lost a friendship of 40 years just before last Christmas, because this guy is still committed to the safe and effective narrative. And in the last conversation with him, he still said that I was an agent provocateur who was putting the society at risk by not being vaccinated. And so that's an example of him seeing me as the person that's betrayed society. That all you had to do, Lindsay, and I've had a number of vaccinated acquaintances, when they've seen the trials and tribulations that I and my family have gone through during COVID, they've got an exasperated expression. They've said, "Why don't you just get vaccinated?" They just don't get it. So they're still living in that. In their reality is that the social contract is that you do what the government tells you to do and everything will be okay.
Yeah, that's correct.
Now that kind of a mentality can only exist in a world of denial, because when you actually begin to look at the things the government does, you start to see the double standards and the corruption and the stupidity and the errors. And
how could you not see it nowadays?
Well, but that's what I'm saying. There is this diehard people of, and I can't even. I'm going to call them blue pillars for want of anything else. That they've taken the blue pill. They're living in the matrix, and as miserable as the matrix is, it's their matrix.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
And if you step out of it, and I love the metaphors in the movie The Matrix, because the world that Neo entered when he stepped out of the Matrix was even more miserable than the Matrix.
That's right.
He was on the run for his life the whole time.
Food was shit. Everyone was trying to kill you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so there is two sides to betrayal. So when we look at the societal wide betrayal that and I feel so naive going into 2020. I was in such denial. I had so much evidence that the government couldn't be trusted. I had worked for Big Pharma. Honestly, I probably could have written a book about why you shouldn't trust the medical industry and the government.
Yeah.
And yet I went into 2020, got sucked into the fear porn in that first early, January and early February, and I am willing to admit that I was frankly hoping for a vaccine to come along.
Wow.
But I didn't. But I was incredulous. I was like, there's no way they're going to be able to achieve that. We're going to have to face this existential threat of this terrible virus.
Yeah.
And because it took them that period of 9 months before they were able to start rolling it out, that was enough time for my amazing investigative wife. She's got a PhD in business, so she's a really good researcher. And she began to notice these anomalies in the real world. And but long before the injections came out, we realised that it was all bullshit, that they were pumping up the fatalities. They were using questionable testing. They were creating a false universe and a blue pill matrix. And so that was the first betrayal. But there are these people like the ex-friend of 40 years who is still buying into the lies of the betrayer, that it would be more painful for him to accept the truths that I am willing to offer him should he ever ask me. I don't push my beliefs on people. I think that's a stupid thing to do.
But the evidence is overwhelming now about the lies, and with all the excess deaths and all the interviews done by people. I mean, it really is now an act of sheer will to believe that everything was just as the government said it was. You really would have to, you'd have to want to believe it rather than actually believe it, because the evidence is overwhelming.
Let me tell you an illustrative story out of a black and white movie from the 1960s, shockingly called "Sex and the Single Girl," and the premise and the premise of the movie was there was this guy who was a real charlatan, and he had a happily married mate, and he was saying to his happily married mate, "How on earth could you be happy just having sex with one woman? You've got to spread your wild oats." And so the movie was him seducing this decent man into trying to seduce him into being a philanderer. And one of the strategies that he said was the strategy of deny, deny, deny. And so they played this little vignette, and it's hilarious in hindsight because the rules in Hollywood in those days were that men and women were not allowed to be shown in bed touching unclothed. So this little milieu evolves that here's this man and a woman in bed. They both had to have one foot touching the floor. That was the rules for movies in those days. So the man's got trousers, a shirt and a tie on, and the woman's got high heels and a cocktail dress on and makeup and the big beehive hairdo. And everyone knew that they'd just had an affair. And the guy's wife walks into the room and catches them in flagrant delicti, and she goes ballistic. And the husband and his girlfriend just completely ignore her. They get up, they make the bed, they straighten each other's clothes. She walks out the door, gives him a kiss goodbye, and the wife is in the background, literally screaming and hopping from foot to foot.
Oh my God!
And the husband comes back into the room, and he waits for her to run out of breath, and he says to her, "Can I get you a cup of coffee?" and she said, "Okay," and that was the end of it. And so I was probably 16 when I saw that movie. If you've got enough front to be able to just bulldoze your way through the betrayed person's objections to your betrayal, it takes a reasonably strong-minded individual to stop your gaslighting and to go, "No, hang on a minute, I'm not the crazy one here."
Very clever.
But many people are not, and that's what happened during COVID. That the overwhelming majority of people were bullied, coerced, tricked, manipulated into not seeing the betrayal.
Yeah.
And now I think a number of them are beginning to wake up. I don't think this would have happened in the absence of Donald Trump, love him or hate him. I think he was an absolute unexpected unicorn. That's an oxymoron, of course, or a tautology at least. But he's definitely a unicorn. In the absence of Trump winning, if Harris had have won that election, then we wouldn't have had people waking up all over the world. We all, the people in our community understand the the evil of the Trusted News Initiative and Five Eyes and all of these and Zuckerberg and Facebook censoring and propagandizing. We understand that. But in the absence of someone like Trump and RFK and Tulsi Gabbard and all of these amazing people that are now shining a light into dark places in the US and all over the world, in the absence of them, the sleepers would never have awoken. But through that one arguable shining light on the hill is not allowing people to remain in denial of the betrayal that we have experienced as a species over the last 5 years.
Yeah, I get it.
So now let's try and tie this back to our mutually agreed attempt to try and encourage the freedom movement to be a movement of love and compassion and forgiveness.
Yeah.
Actually,
before we go there, I just have to do. This is for Rahana. I just have to do a pitch for the magnolia tree. I'm just trying to find the damn thing. There's because no, yeah. Two seconds. Just let me find the thing. Here it is. I'll just put up the painting someone did. Here it is. So the magnolia tree is oh, you've actually read it, Lindsay.
I have. I loved it.
It's a magnolia tree play. So that's actually about betrayal. So it's about three siblings putting the mum in a nursing home, and then the brother basically sets about trying to convince his sisters to change their morality, stating that the current morality they've grown up with is basically redundant and is not going to sustain them. And so he tries to get them to kill mum, that to do it together, and then the audience has to vote whether they do it or not. It doesn't sound funny. It is actually quite funny. It's in places. Yeah, but it's a great play to watch. It's really exciting, really fun. It's like Agatha Christie, but you get to participate, and it
really touched me very deeply because my father's passing about 6 or 7 years ago. He was in hospital. I believed he was comatose, and he was in a really, really bad way. Sorry, talk about the painting, mate. That's the brother and the two sisters.
No.
Yeah?
Just putting up. That's the painting by Angela. She's helping with the production, so she painted that as the ad. But it's on the 23rd of August, and the tickets are on sale now. I think it's the 23rd of August. Yeah, it's in Colac. I think the tickets are in. If knowing Rahana, I'd say they're probably in Try Booking. Or just contact Red Rock Regional Theatre Art and Gallery. It's a little way out of. I'll have to get in touch with her and say, yeah. I'll get in touch with her and say we should be doing this better. There's so you can hit here for the tickets. Go to the Facebook, but it's a great venue. But it's just a play that's going to challenge you. Put it this way, you're really going to be challenged, which is why the play works, So, yeah.
Awesome. Okay. I've completely lost the thread of where I was going now.
No, so we're going back now on dealing with betrayal now. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've still got a substantial percent of the population are in denial. Yeah. We represent a growing proportion of the community who are painfully aware of the betrayal that's happened. And the question, I've just remembered the question I was going to put to you, Michael. Let's imagine that you and I lived within proximity of one another and we were good friends, and you discovered that my wife was being unfaithful with my next door neighbour. What would you do? If you completely knew that I didn't know, what would you do?
Oh, it'd depend on the depth of our relationship, the strength of our relationship. Because I'm telling you, chances are, even if we were really close, if I told you, the person you'd kick out of your life would be me.
Okay, well, if we were that close, you would know that would not be the case.
But and a lot of times that is, I've
Yeah,
seen
but
that
it's
before.
it's one of my principles, and one of the ones that I advocate for other people is if you cannot forgive somebody for telling you an unpalatable truth, then you're not worth being their friend.
Wow. Yeah.
That's a very, very strong belief of mine.
Yeah.
And I personally take falsehoods very seriously. If you and I lived in proximity and our friendship was that a friendship of, I think we've got a reasonably good social relationship.
Yeah.
But if we had the proximity to make it a really good friendship, and I discovered that you knew that my wife had been sleeping around and you hadn't said anything to me, I would be furious with you, Michael. I'd be saying, how dare you? How dare you keep a secret like that from me? Do you not? That's oh my God! That would be a second betrayal. That would be like the abused child being beaten by their mother for talking about the abuse. It's a shocking secondary betrayal. And so we've got this. So what I want us as a freedom community to do is to recognise that, and I agree with you, by the way, most people would have that knee-jerk reaction to a loving friend sharing an uncomfortable truth with them and would punish the friend. Now, that means we, as the loving friend...
reason I'm bringing that up is this is what happened to us. We were bringing up, this is not real. There's something wrong.
Yep.
And now, we were the ones that were attacked.
And that's the point I'm getting to. That, and I'm a bit of a stuck record on this. We have got to get better at finding ways to tell these uncomfortable truths to other people. Now, if our imaginary situations were reversed, Michael, and I had knowledge of Kelly being unfaithful to you, I would have a philosophical conversation with you over a beer, and we would talk about the nature of friendship and truth and what sort of boundaries would you put on the admissions or truths that you actually shared with people who were as friendly as you and I are, Michael. And, I'd say if I discovered that your daughter was a prostitute down at the local brothel, would you want me to tell you? And I'd gradually corral, with questioning always, gradually bring it down and get to the point where you would be saying to me, well, if someone like you, Lindsay, knew that Kelly was being unfaithful to me, I'd bloody expect you to tell me. And I would double check. I'd say, are you sure, Michael? And you'd say, hell yes. And I'd say, well, now we get to the point of this entire conversation, mate. And you would instantly know. You'd say, holy crap, tell me what you've seen. And I would then be able to tell you with your permission, and you wouldn't shoot the messenger.
Interesting.
Now, we've got to finesse the way we offer compassionate honesty with the people who are in denial. And we've all demonstrated, me included, because this is brand new territory for me, by the way. I've never had to deal with this sort of betrayal in my entire life, even in my imagination. Can I
bring up a betrayal story from today? There's two actually. I lost my wallet, and I had to go and get my things changed. New license, new cards. I went into the bank to get the cards, and as I was telling you at the start, they look at you when you go in the bank. You feel like you're being betrayed by the bank. These banks are rich because of us. All the mortgages people have paid, the loans people have paid, all the fees they've taken from us. That's why they're so wealthy. And yet you go into the bank now, they're like, yes, like what are you doing here, pleb? And I had to. They sat me down with this woman. And I will say she was an Indian woman. The only reason I'm saying it's an Indian woman is often they're more polite and less willing to talk about the issues that we talk about. That's what I've found. I could be wrong, but she seemed very conservative. And I thought, so this woman's jabbed, probably against her will, but she's done it to keep this job. And now here she was with me, and she wanted me to open my app to say, basically, you don't need me. She was showing me how to do it on my phone so that I didn't require her. And I said to her, listen, I'm in the bank. I want you to do it. And she's going, oh, but it's all going digital now. And I said, I'm not digital. You're not digital. Let's work on it together, eh? And she was getting kind of not upset, but I didn't know whether she was. It was a bit hard to read, but I said she did it for me, and then you could see that she was under duress not to do it. Like she'd get in trouble. Her job was to basically F me off, train me how to do it myself. So basically the bank, and I bet she was being a great employee, the bank was getting her to portray herself. You know, basically walk yourself to the chopping board, sharpen the axe, and when we're ready, we'll chop your head off. That's what she had to go through. And I said to her, and I was being nice then. I told her that must be very hard, you working like this. You're obviously a good worker, knowing that they're just getting ready to get rid of you. And I said, think back to the first industrial revolution. Before then, there was horses everywhere, pulling milk carts, horses just everywhere. And after it, no horses. Horses are a hobby. And it was just machines. I said, we got a revolution going on now. Be very careful that you're not the horse. Anyway,
I love it.
I didn't think I'd had any resonated with her. But then she said to me, just when leaving, she said, I'm going to tell all your suggestions to my superiors.
I love
and
that.
I thought, oh, good on you. And but I was getting pissed off because I was thinking they're brutalizing, they're treating me like shit, and they're brutalizing this good employee. This bank is very clearly saying, we don't like you people. We just want your money. We don't like you. Get out of here. Get onto digital ID. Get onto cash. And this is the state going, we're over you. We don't feel we owe you anything, even though the reason we have private yachts and planes is because of you. You've done it all. It was a great betrayal, and it pissed me off, actually. I was vocal enough not to get thrown out, but vocal enough to let people hear. And I'm not alone. Further down at the till, I can hear older guys going, because it's my money. I don't need to tell you what it is. Just give me my. You can hear this.
Yeah.
You know?
But Michael, the genius in that is that you used a really evocative, brilliant metaphor to awaken her to the fact that she was walking the plank, and it wasn't going to be long before she was, in the embrace of the cold, dark ocean.
That's right.
Now that's very different to telling people. What you did was allow her to paint a mental picture and motivate her. Now, in the origin of today's conversation, if I discovered that my wife had been unfaithful with the next door neighbour, I would invoke our mutually agreed condition of our relationship, that infidelity is the only deal breaker in our relationship. And so if I did discover that she was being unfaithful to me, I would be saying to her, I hope you'll have somewhere else to live tomorrow, because I've got a locksmith coming tomorrow to change the locks. And you don't live here anymore. Now that she would then potentially see that as betrayal. But because we've already set it up, because we did that work 35 years ago, we now have, not only do we have our dedication to each other and the relationship as the glue holding it together, we've got the carrot and the stick. We've got the wonderful nature of a committed monogamous relationship, and we've got the stick of if any of us meets our Achilles heel and is seduced by that third party and it's discovered by our spouse, we're out in the cold, baby. So it just works. So getting back to our kind of global betrayal, up until 2020, my understanding of the contract that I had with my society and my government and commerce and the regulators, my understanding was that they would do their best to not kill me. that
Yeah.
they would do their best to facilitate me being a reasonably productive, well-adjusted member of society. And at no time in the 70 years leading up to 2020 had I experienced society being malevolent enough towards me for me to have considered it a betrayal. And so I came into 2020 with that incredible naivety that the world was a reliable place.
Yeah.
And so the emergence of that terrible betrayal was an existential impact. I think it's called a Cartesian crisis, where you've been operating on a set of beliefs which, when disproven, put you in a cognitive dissonance. You are suddenly in psychological disarray because the premises upon which you have based your stability have now been shown to be tissue paper. They're not real. And now the majority of at least the Australian population have avoided that Cartesian crisis by staying in denial and by not even contemplating that they've been betrayed. And when people like us evidence the pain of us recognizing that we've been betrayed, that's an existential threat to them, because if they in any way associate with us and our perception of our betrayal, they can't stay in denial any longer. And so we've got to be as creative as you were in the bank, Michael. We've got to find those compassionate, gentle, curiosity-based ways.
Do you think there's so many people in denial now? I mean, you literally we're literally caught in the story of the emperor has no clothes. We are the ones that are going, he's stark naked, and the others can see him dressed. Because there's more of them than us, even though I think there's a lot of people now who are they're quietly awake. But the ones who are in denial, they almost created their own reality. And we have our reality, and we believe it's the truth, but they believe theirs is the truth. So it's almost like two realities. I was reading about this Hungarian mathematician or theoretical physicist, and he was going that two different realities can coexist all the time. And I was actually wondering, is this it? We're not actually saying you're living in a lie. It's actually saying your entire reality is skewed. You've painted a picture of like you think the government cares for you. Basically, it's like going back to kindergarten where we're the ones that know, look, there ain't no Santa. And there's other kids that go, of course there's Santa. What are you talking about? Teacher Lindsay reckons there's no Santa. And the teacher would come up and chastise you. What are you doing, Lindsay? We went through this in kindergarten. And then bit by bit, and yet I doubt you'd find any adult walking around who still believes in Santa. So all of us go through it and realize it's all bull. But at different stages, we wake up to it. There's always one clever kid who, really early doesn't buy it, and the rest of us. And the reason we buy it is we want presents. We like the idea, So we were sitting there going, well, who ate the cookies? I left cookies out last night. Who ate the cookies? Because I need him to be real. And then, but then of course you catch your eye there. So we've actually all gone through this once, not so much with the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy, but we have gone through Santa.
But Michael, myths and fantasies aside, what you're describing is a ubiquitous psychological phenomenon. We all live within the delusion of our own perceptions. One of the things that people often find shocking with this, and I'll see how you react to it. I don't think I've asked you this before. Do you see the world in colour, Michael?
Yes, I believe I do.
Yeah, well, you don't.
And
what you see,
I know I don't. I know it's reflected light, but
No. Sorry, no. I'm talking about your perceptions. When you perceive the world, do you perceive the vista that's before your eyes? Do you perceive it as colourful?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Okay. Your brain is fooling you. You only see colour in a very narrow circle directly in front of your pupils. Your peripheral vision is monochrome. Your peripheral vision is designed to pick up movement. Now, that was such a, when I was exposed to this 40 years ago studying psychology, I was in complete denial. I called bullshit until the next week we did a laboratory experiment, and I was one of the subjects to it, and it manifested itself. They had a circular rail, and in the middle of the front was a random number generator, and it changed numbers about I can't remember, maybe once a second, and you had to call out each number as it popped up on this little screen. So you couldn't look left and right, otherwise you wouldn't be able to call the number out. And they would then gradually, from one side or the other, they would bring in a luminescently coloured piece of paper, and they'd bring it in on this track, and you had to push a button when it came into your peripheral vision and a button when you could identify what colour it was. And so
Wow.
so the patch would come into your vision at about 175 degrees or something. We've got a pretty wide field of vision. And you're sitting there, 4, 17, 23, 55, 43, reading the numbers out. Click there, I can perceive the movement. And it wasn't until it got to about here that you could say that it was luminescent pink or yellow or green or whatever it was. And it was vividly colourful. And so that's a tiny glimpse.
Extraordinary,
So we live in a world which is filtered and created for us by our brains, and our brains are manipulated and informed and programmed by our environment. And so now that's about the only get out of jail card that I can think of for acknowledging that that we should find some forgiveness in our hearts for these betrayals that we've experienced in the last 5 years. There's a group of people, and I don't know how many tens of thousands of them there are, who were the psychopaths who deliberately did this shit to us over the last 5 years.
Yeah.
But all of these local GPs, nurses, hospital administrators, schoolmasters, public servants, all of these people who rigorously applied the rules of mandates and lockdowns and firing people and that sort of stuff, they were believing that they saw the world in colour, but they didn't realise that the important bits were actually in black and white, and they had painted it with some imaginary colours themselves. So, I guess we've got to come to a wind-up point of this conversation at some point or other, don't we? I think if I was going to try to sum up the conversation that we've had now is there is no excuse in my world for betrayal, but there are sometimes reasons for it. And if we can go looking for the reasons open-mindedly, intelligently, curiously, compassionately, and lovingly, if we can tease out what the reasons might be that these people have betrayed us, then we might have that moment, well, like that woman in the bank, where they have that breakthrough where they suddenly realise that they've been betrayed and they've been in unconscious denial of it. So,
it's very difficult, isn't it? I watched Pat Cash being interviewed the other day, and he said people were telling him, just shut up. But he said, I couldn't. He goes, but you're going to lose all your sponsors. You're going to lose everything. He goes, yeah, but I can see it. I can't unsee it. It was really, really interesting. And I think we've got to see lots more of this. I'm just going to put your book up before. This is Lindsay's book, Why Clever People Do Dumb Things. And the link is here. When did you write this, Lindsay?
About, I'm going to say 6 or 7 years ago now. I've got 5 of those Why Clever People books in me. I've recently completed Why Clever Managers Do Dumb Things. I'm almost all the way through Why Clever Young People Do Dumb Things. I've yet to start Why Clever Couples Do Dumb Things. So I've got a whole bunch of them in train. Go
there. Now, the other thing, though, in the show notes, tell us about this course that you wanted to promote.
Well, it's relevant to all the work that you and I, that you in particular, and you and I in this particular podcast are trying to achieve. it's the intent of the course is found in its name. It's how to thrive in a mad, mad world, and it's a monthly membership, and the membership gives you access to a fortnightly webinar, and every other fortnight there's a Q&A where the members get to put questions in that don't have to be necessarily relevant to the prior webinar, but it's an attempt to bring understanding, rational belief, altered behaviours, new skills, breakthrough materials, all those sort of things. And I'm trying to make it bipartisan. I would really love for half of my population to be the blue pill and half of my population to be the red pill.
Yeah, that'd be really interesting. Now, it's very hard to talk to the other mob. I'm sorry, they have this glaze over.
Yep.
And I'm really interested, I often don't tell people I'm vaccinated because the vaccinated, most of them don't know who I am. They don't watch any of that stuff. And so it's really interesting listening to why they took it, what they think about it. Most seem to regret taking it. Most seem to. I had one gentleman the other day. I need to write about him. He is in Eden. He's a big, strong entrepreneur, and he was on the verge of tears because he really felt violated. I said, "You feel like you've been medically raped?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Yeah, thanks. That's what I feel like." So even though he had symptoms of side effects and stuff, the betrayal is what really was ripping him apart. It was so hard listening to him. You really couldn't say you're just listening. And all you can do is listen. Because the other interesting thing I noticed with our side, like I had a woman come up to the bus today. If you're watching, I won't say your name, but it was so good to see you. She had a dog with her, and it wasn't her dog though. It was a friend's dog who has cancer, and I think the friend either knows it was the jab or doesn't want to talk about it, but she won't even. She's so deep in denial. She won't even try any alternative stuff at all. She's just going to do what the doctors say. The same doctors who told her it was safe and effective, and so she's taking her denial to the grave.
Yeah, what sort of a betrayal is it that they are gaslighting the vaccine injured and the fatalities of the vaccine, and they're not even giving them the dignity of any form of legitimate diagnosis or explanation as to whether it could be. That to
and
me
all they
is
want, a lot of them, all they want is acknowledgement. The vaccine injured.
I've just noticed two comments come up that I'll briefly address. Victoria saying you can't just instantly stop loving someone. I agree, and I think that's, I don't know whether Victoria made the comment earlier, that if I did discover that my wife had been unfaithful to me, would I leave her? And the answer is yes. Now, I am not a believer in making empty threats. That if I tell someone there will be a consequence to their behaviour, and they persevere with that behaviour, they experience the consequences. And the only fight in my life that I've won was a guy where he was doing something profoundly irritating. I was only about 14, and I politely asked him to stop. He continued, so I firmly said, "If you don't stop, I'll punch you in the face." And the next thing, I punched him in the face. And he hit the ground like a bag of spuds and got up blubbering. And he said, "What did you do that for?" I said, "Because you asked me to." And that's so. So in response to what Victoria said, that
don't let that put you off going to him for therapy.
Sarah, if Sarah did betray me in a deal-breaking way, it would not stop me loving her. There's nothing that I could imagine would ever stop me loving Sarah, but I would not continue a relationship with her if that deeper betrayal occurred. That's kind of weirdo.
Isn't it? It's a really difficult thing because now we have it on this extraordinary large scale, and we're still being betrayed. They're betraying
Yep.
us by selling off our. I said to some, I've been telling Richard, I'm telling people, an analogy of Australia now is someone suffering from malnutrition in an all-you-can-eat buffet because we've got all this mineral wealth
Yeah.
and we're
Yep.
starving. I mean,
Yes.
we've been betrayed that deeply for that long. I
I
think
agree.
that's
I
why
think
the
that's
constitutionalists, the ones who are all about, that the Constitution was changed unconstitutionally, it's the betrayal that pisses them off and
yes.
it drives them
And
forward.
yes, I'm very much in agreement with you, Michael. I think net zero is an enormous betrayal. It's a lie.
Yeah, net
But
zero is
and
enormous betrayal.
the
And
other comment I
there's
noticed
betrayal everywhere.
was that the other comment that I noticed come up was from the resident wag. I can't think of his name now. He's always making funny comments in the thing. But he said, "What about dumb people?" And I actually thought about writing a book called "Why Dumb People Do Dumb Things," but I could only think of 4 words to put in it because they are dumb. So, so it took 48,000 words to explain why clever people do dumb things, but only 4 words.
Do you think, and just to finish the conversation here, we have a deeply divided country that they are working 24/7 to divide even further from Palestine, Israel to all these things? Are just, absolutely division everywhere. I actually would argue that Australia's identity is up for grabs, and all these splinter groups are basically trying to establish their story as the fundamental story of Australia, so you can build a culture on that. And but when it comes to us, I noticed in the hospital that those who took it and went on, they don't seem to realize that we've been affected or our lives have been altered or changed. So when it comes to healing, is it unfortunate, even though we were the ones that took the punches, but is it our responsibility to be the ones that begin the healing?
I think so, Michael. Absolutely. I mean, if you expect the insane people in the insane asylum to heal themselves, then that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So if we look at ourselves as a movement, if we are representative of some form of a movement that could loosely be called the freedom movement, that
Blue beers.
Yeah, the blue beers. If we want to differentiate ourselves as that, we've got to say, okay, what is it that makes us different? And one of the things that makes us different is that we're willing to question a status quo. We're not willing to just allow someone to tell us, because I told you so. Yeah. We don't have fucking parents anymore. We're all grown-ups, and nobody's got the damn right to tell me what to do unless they've got a gun in their hand. Yeah. And if I genuinely believe they're going to shoot me for not taking the jab, then I'll take the jab. But that's and I
have many ideas, Lindsay.
They don't. That would not be a novel idea to them, Michael. They'd be going, "Oh shit, they've sprung it." There you go. So it was Jason that made the facetious remark about the dumb people doing dumb things.
So that is my feeling. Is that it's. Yeah, you're right. Somehow we have to change our messaging. Sometimes that's why I actually think we have to get them to come to us, and the way we do that is starting to be the reason of this B idea was also to show, hey, we're proud of who we are. We are proud, strong, resilient, critical thinking Australians. And we still want to, that's why I like the bee, because it says we still pollinate flowers. We still want to participate in society, but we don't want to be told what to think. We're happy to think for ourselves. And that's our only crime, because the state, especially this Labor government, is trying to create a hive mind and stuff like this. So that's what it seems to be. So it's really... It seems to me that it's incumbent on us to start the healing, and I see that done in with the planting of the forest of the fallen and other things. I see so many of our community trying to do it. Now, community is always talking about building community, which which is what I love about them. But it's almost a betrayal in itself. You kicked us, you betrayed us in a way that, you know, we were your brothers and sisters. You shot us, you kicked us out of our jobs, you kicked us out of Christmas. And now here you are, all sick and all confused and all lost in your own darkness. And the only ones who have the chance of sort of bringing you back to some richer humanity are the mob that you've deeply betrayed.
Mm-hmm. But if we don't do it, Michael, it won't happen.
I know. I totally agree. Hoodie says the same. I totally agree. We have to look past this and look to the greater good, which is healing our country. So it's really, really tough. It's a really
However,
tough call, but it has to be done.
I think we have to, and I don't want to oversell this because it could corrupt what we're hoping to achieve. We definitely have to be compassionate, forgiving, understanding, curious, all of those things. But we also have to be wary of trusting these people. We've been betrayed, and this is where the social story is different to the intimate relationship betrayal. In the social story, we have the ability to understand the reason why these people betrayed us. It's because they were manipulated into betraying us. Now that means we know that they're capable of being manipulated into betraying us. Now, step one in our compassionate approach to them is to let them know that we understand why they betrayed us and that we're willing to give them a second chance. But we can't do either of those things through issuing statements. We have to get to the point where, through our intellectual, genuine curiosity, we have to get them saying, but if we were wrong, why would someone like you be interested in talking to us? And I think I've told you the story about me stopping to help an old guy when I was 18, coming home from a gig with a band. Have I told you that story, Michael?
No.
Okay. I was a lead singer in a rock and roll band at 19, and I had afro hair came out to my shoulders. It was Jimi Hendrix personified. Pitch black hair, little weedy moustache, and I was coming home from a gig, and I had a purple velour Nehru collared shirt on, leather pants, leather bell bottoms, and bare feet. And I saw this guy on the side of the road. It was about 2:00 in the morning, and this guy must have been in his 50s or 60s, on the side of the road with his bonnet up. And I'm reasonably mechanical. And so I pulled over and walked back and I said, "Are you okay?" He said, "Oh, I can't work out what's wrong with it." And so I tinkered with it for a few minutes and worked out what the problem was. I don't remember now, and got the damn car going again. And we were as we were shaking hands to go our separate ways, he said, "Do you mind if I ask you a question, mate?" He said, "Why would someone that looks like you stop and help someone that looks like me?" And
wow,
I don't know where it came from, but my response was, so that maybe someone that looks like you will stop and help someone that looks like me.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah.
So I think that's that. I'd love that to be the rationale of our movement.
That's a great place to end it. That's great. Okay, I've got to show you things now. I'm actually joining the Emmy. Is it the superhero universe? And I'm going to be known now forevermore as B-Man. Blue B-Man. So we just got that from a T-shirt. It's a few things wrong with it, so I get to keep it because we can't sell it. But yeah, that's very true. That's very, very true. Do you know, I'll tell you where the hope for humanity is and this is way COVID. There was a guy doing a documentary in England, Michael Moore, actually. He had this documentary series. And what he did is he got someone to lay on the floor in London to show that people don't care, and they'd walk by him. And they put it down, And as soon as he got down on the ground, within moments, this guy had come up and said, "You okay, mate?" And he actually, the opposite happened, even in a
Wow.
lonely city like Melbourne, London.
London, yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I do think, this is my absolute belief. I'd love to send you my play Marooned. I'd love to have your thoughts on my play Marooned. But the play Marooned basically has one premise, and that is the gods gave us one thing to get us through all the hardship of this existence and to celebrate the joy of this existence too, but especially to help us get through the hardship, and that is each other.
Yep.
That's it.
You
know,
I love it.
I love talking to you, brother. I'm so glad you agreed to do these shows. And he'll be back 2 weeks from today. Give him 2 weeks off to think about what he wants to talk about. But I think it's an honor for our community to have you on and to share your wisdom with us. So check the show notes for his what did you call it? His
Thriving in a Mad World membership.
Thriving in a Mad World. It's so it's sort of a program or
it's an unfolding support series for a community.
That too. Or check out his book, which is in the thing. Why clever people do dumb things. But I wish we could have people to applaud him, because it's so special to have you on. And APRA, well, I hope you're listening and learning instead of sitting down there going, "How can we get this one?"
Yeah. So, which word he says that's in the banned list? Yeah. Just before we go, anyone who does go on to that Thriving in a Mad World, we're having all sorts of glitches with the website, so please be patient with us. You're welcome to go on a wait list if we're glitching when you try and get on. But 30% discount for Cafe Locked Out. All you got to do is put CLO in the promotional box and hit apply, and you get 30% off for all the Cafe Locked Out people. So,
g'day, Lynn. Sorry I didn't say hi to you before, Lynn. It's nice to see you, girl. We should catch up, Lynn, while I'm in Melbourne. But Lindsay, thank you again. So you got that. You got 30% off for being a part of our little tribe, and which is what we are now. We're all these little tribes. And and take care, Lindsay. I very much look forward to seeing you again. I'm going to go with a song called End of Times. And I wrote this in the first lockdown. I remember I didn't know what was happening. I wasn't fully awake. I had a strange thing. I remember calling Dad up and telling Mum, who was sick, you better keep her home and keep her away, because this stuff could kill her. So this is when even my children were asking me, is this the end of everything? And so I wrote this poem then, and I forgot about it until I found it, and I threw it in AI, and it came out with this. So this is called The End of Times. Anyway, take care, brother. Thank you for enriching my life by coming into it.
It's an absolute privilege, mate. I'm loving it.
Yeah, cheers, brother. Take care. Say hi to your wife.
I will, thank you. Hi to Kelly.
Dad was shaking his head down the phone. Like everyone now, he keeps repeating, who knows? I told him, make sure you keep our mom inside, for if it gets into her, she'll be gone. Then later that day Alf called, but in his smiling arms there was a frown. He said, you know, Mike, I have a terrible feeling that maybe this is the end of our times. We woke up again, but we had nothing to do, so we had some warm fun, not once but twice. But instead of recording a record third time, you lay against me reading your phone. You were scrolling through more impossible news, until despite the morning that was still kissing you, you said, you know, Mike, I have a terrible feeling that this may be the end of our times. Hey God, are you still there? Can't you see in the houses we built without you that we're all getting back on our knees? Oh Lord, do you think you could let this one pass? But God's reply was a chopper overhead, patrolling the streets with a didactic tune, and it was clear to us what its lyrics were asking, because my kids were asking it too. You know, Dad, I have a terrible feeling that maybe this is the end of our times. You know, Dad, I have a terrible feeling that maybe this is the end of our times. Regardless, we are still holding on, despite death being due. Together we glow. It left me wondering if somewhere up there the angels were peering through a telescope at us. Well, I don't know if they know they are doomed, but from up here they look beautiful. It's like I'm looking